The screen of your phone lights up at 2:14 a.m. on a Thursday. A subtle vibration on the nightstand. It's the notification you've been waiting for all week. Your direct deposit just hit. For exactly 14 minutes, you feel something resembling peace. You feel like a participant in the economy. You look at that 4-digit number on your banking app, and your brain releases a warm, comforting wave of dopamine. But let's be brutally honest. You know that money isn't yours. By 2:28 a.m., the automated systems wake up. The auto draft for the car loan you took out to impress people in traffic. The premium streaming subscriptions you don't have the energy to watch. The minimum credit card payment covering the interest on dinners you barely remember eating. By the time you wake up, brush your teeth, and tie your shoes for a job that drains your soul, that deposit is gone. You are not the owner of your wealth. You are just a logistical router, a temporary transfer station, moving capital from your boss's account directly into the vault of a multinational bank. We need to talk about the grand illusion of the modern era. You've been told that your financial stagnation is a math problem, a lack of budgeting, a simple discrepancy between income and expenses. That is a lie. Your bank account isn't empty because you don't know how to use a spreadsheet. It's empty because you are the victim of a highly orchestrated, multi-billion-dollar psychological conditioning program. You aren't poor. You have simply been trained, methodically, ruthlessly, and scientifically, to stay poor. Look around you. We are surrounded by a new social class, the premium broke. Take a look at Marcus, the guy sitting in the glass office down the hall. Marcus makes $90,000 a year. On paper, he is the picture of modern success. He wears a smartwatch that tracks his stress levels. He leases a flawless German sedan, and he vacations in places that look great on algorithmic feeds. But if Marcus misses 2 consecutive paychecks, his entire reality disintegrates. He is 30 days away from complete insolvency at any given moment. He doesn't own his lifestyle. He rents it from a consortium of lenders who charge him a premium for the illusion of status. Society has normalized this absurd theater. We have been conditioned to associate the deployment of capital not with the acquisition of freedom, but with the immediate relief of stress. I look at the modern consumer economy and I see a highly sophisticated behavioral sink. The tragedy isn't that people are buying things they can't afford. The tragedy is that they actually believe these transactions will heal the chronic exhaustion of their existence. You don't buy the luxury upgrade because you appreciate the engineering. You buy it because your life feels entirely out of your control. And swiping that piece of plastic is the only 3 seconds of the day where you feel like you have power. And the architects of this system know exactly how you operate. They built the maze specifically for your dimensions. They know you work 50 hours a week. They know you skip vacations and sacrifice your physical health to climb a corporate ladder that is missing the bottom rungs. So when Friday night rolls around, you feel you deserve that $60 food delivery. You tell yourself it's a reward. It's not a reward. It's the cheese on the trap. You trade your leverage, your autonomy, and your finite, unrecoverable time for lukewarm noodles in a cardboard box because you are too mentally depleted to boil a pot of water. This isn't an accident. The system doesn't want you rested. A well-rested, emotionally stable individual is an economic disaster for the modern marketplace. Content people don't impulse buy designer clothes at midnight. Secure people don't finance $80,000 trucks at 12% interest to intimidate strangers on the highway. They need you tired. They need you insecure. Because an insecure, exhausted worker is a compliant consumer. You think you're participating in a free market, making independent choices about your lifestyle. But the reality is far more clinical. You are running on a frictionless wheel. generating kinetic energy for institutions that view you as nothing more than an algorithmic data point. You think you are buying status, but you are actively financing your own captivity. The truly terrifying part isn't that this conditioning exists. The terrifying part is how deeply embedded it is in your neurological wiring. You've been trained to love the leash. And once you understand the exact mechanics of how they hacked your dopamine receptors, you can never unsee it. Phase 1. The dopamine debt loop. Let's look at a different breed of the modern captive. Meet Ethan. Ethan is 32, a senior systems analyst who prides himself on being intellectually superior to the guy financing a sports car. Ethan doesn't wear flashy logos. He wears plain, unbranded clothing. He thinks he is entirely immune to the consumer matrix, but his bank account tells a much darker story. He is bleeding out through 1,000 digital cuts. He just dropped $3,000 on a seamlessly integrated smart home ecosystem. Why? Because his job demands so much of his cognitive bandwidth that the thought of manually turning off a light switch feels like an insurmountable chore. He spends $150 a week on hyper-optimized, vacuum-sealed meal deliveries. He calls it an investment in his health. It isn't. It's a coping mechanism for the fact that his corporate overlords leave him with zero energy to feed himself like a functional adult. Ethan thinks he is buying efficiency. What he is actually doing is paying a premium to endure a miserable existence. He is outsourcing his basic human survival skills to algorithms because the wheel he runs on spins entirely too fast for him to step off. This brings us to the true face of your enemy. It isn't a cartoonish villain hoarding gold. The antagonist of your financial life is the invisible army of behavioral psychologists working in the tech industry. Their sole directive is to eliminate the psychological friction of parting with your capital. Think about the architecture of modern spending. A decade ago, to waste money, you had to physically stand up, find your wallet, pull out cash, and calculate the damage. Now, you just double-click the side button on your phone. Facial recognition scans your exhausted eyes, and a drone drops garbage you don't need on your porch 12 hours later. The financial industry realized something terrifying about human biology. If they remove the physical pain of handing over cash, they bypass your logical brain entirely. They transform the crushing weight of consumer debt into a biometric reflex. True slavery isn't enforced with iron chains anymore. It's enforced with one-click shipping and biometric checkouts. They made the cage so incredibly comfortable, so utterly frictionless, that you are actively paying a monthly premium just to keep the door locked from the inside. They don't attack you when you are rational. They wait until Thursday night. They wait until your commute has drained your soul and your willpower is depleted. That is when the targeted ad appears, promising the one thing you crave most: temporary relief. You swipe. You consume the digital cheese. But the trap snaps shut the moment the dopamine fades. You wake up, the purchase is on your desk, but the underlying misery of your routine hasn't changed. You just have less leverage than you did yesterday. Phase 2. Weaponized insecurity. The machine doesn't just want your disposable income. It wants your identity. It needs you to constantly feel like you are one purchase away from being complete. This is the core of the lifestyle creep epidemic. The moment you get a raise, the algorithmic perimeter around you shifts. You are a lab rat running on a treadmill that automatically increases its speed the faster you sprint. You aren't upgrading your life. You are just upgrading the aesthetic of your captivity. The bank doesn't care if you buy cheap fast food or artisanal sourdough, as long as you put it on their credit card and roll the balance over to the next month. They feed on your desperate need to signal to society that you aren't falling behind. The premium broke individual believes they are buying peace of mind. But peace of mind requires equity. When you finance comfort, you are signing a contract of perpetual anxiety. You know, deep in your gut, that one corporate downsizing, one missed paycheck, and the entire facade crumbles. You are building a castle on a foundation of high-interest quicksand. And the most brutal part? You haven't even looked at the actual price tag of your choices. You are only looking at the monthly payment. But when you strip away the marketing, the math reveals a horror story you aren't prepared for. Phase 3. The convenience. Tax paradox. Let's strip away the marketing gloss and look at the brutal, unfeeling mathematics of your daily routine. You justify your bleeding balance sheet by claiming you are buying time. You tell yourself that the $30 food delivery fee, the $15 valet parking, the premium subscription that lets you skip a commercial. You tell yourself these are necessary operational expenses for a high-functioning professional. You call it the cost of convenience. I call it the coward's tax. Convenience is the most expensive narcotic on the modern market. It doesn't actually save you time. It merely anesthetizes you while the financial matrix quietly siphons away your future leverage. You are paying a massive premium simply to avoid the mildest forms of adult discomfort. Let's calculate the exact price of this anesthesia using the cost of opportunity. You spend roughly $35 a day on friction avoidance, the overpriced iced coffee because you couldn't be bothered to set a timer on your coffee maker, the surge-priced rideshare because waiting 12 minutes for public transit felt like an indignity, the pre-chopped, plastic-wrapped vegetables at the high-end grocery store. $35 a day. That is over $1,000 a month leaking out of your ecosystem. If you took that $1,000 and placed it into a basic index fund, compounding at an average historical rate of 8%, you aren't just saving pocket change. Over 30 years, that convenience habit is costing you over $1.4 million. Let that sink in. $1.4 million. You are trading a literal fortune, a sum of capital that could buy your absolute autonomy, your early retirement, your ability to walk away from any toxic manager on earth. You are trading all of that for lukewarm burritos delivered to your door and the privilege of not washing a pan. You think you are beating the system by saving 20 minutes a day. But the architects of the maze are laughing at you. They just successfully traded you 20 minutes of cheap comfort for 2 decades of mandatory hard labor. And that math only applies if you are spending cash. But you aren't, are you? The premium broke individual doesn't use liquidity. You are putting that convenience tax on a piece of plastic with a 22% interest rate. You are actively financing your own exhaustion. Debt isn't just a mathematical penalty on a spreadsheet. It is the physical manifestation of stolen time. When you swipe a credit card to fund a lifestyle you haven't actually earned, you are reaching into the future, grabbing your older, more tired self by the collar and forcing them to work extra shifts just so you can feel a fleeting sense of luxury today. You are cannibalizing your own future to sedate your present. Look at the sheer, terrifying absurdity of the transaction. You work 45 hours a week at a job that drains your life force just to earn the currency required to pay the interest on the credit card that you used to buy the temporary stress relief from the job itself. It is a perfectly sealed, self-sustaining ecosystem of misery. You are funding the exact mechanism that keeps the cage door locked. You tell yourself you will pay the balance off next month. You tell yourself this is just a temporary phase of high expenses. But the system is smarter than your willpower. It knows your breaking point. It knows your exact moments of psychological weakness, and it has built invisible toll booths on every single path you take to find relief. So how do you break the conditioning? How do you dismantle a behavioral sink designed by geniuses specifically to exploit your exhaustion? You don't do it by downloading another budgeting app. You don't do it by switching to a credit card with slightly better cashback rewards. That is just asking the warden for a slightly softer pillow in your cell. Phase 4, algorithmic pickpocketing. This brings us back to the ultimate question. Why does the corporate director making $120,000 a year feel the exact same 3 a.m. chest-crushing terror as the guy making minimum wage? Because the financial matrix doesn't tax your income. It taxes your psychological bandwidth. The algorithm is adaptive. The moment your salary increases, the perimeter of your perceived needs expands automatically. The friction is scaled perfectly to your new tax bracket. You upgrade from the drive-thru to the artisanal meal prep delivery. You upgrade from the shared apartment to the luxury loft with the smart concierge that costs an extra $300 a month just to exist. The system adjusts the speed of the treadmill so that no matter how fast you run, you are always exactly one paycheck away from falling off the back. They engineer it so that 0% of your capital remains undeployed. The banking industry views your disposable income as a glitch in their ecosystem, an error that must be corrected through targeted advertising and social pressure. Here is the brutal truth of the matter. The most rebellious act you can commit in a consumer economy is to become completely, unapologetically boring. Phase 5. The Stealth Wealth Protocol. The exit from the rat race isn't a luxury sports car. It isn't a penthouse overlooking a skyline you never have time to look at. The actual exit is a concept the Matrix is terrified of you discovering. Stealth wealth, the quiet, invisible accumulation of leverage. To escape, you have to find deep, profound pleasure in social irrelevance. You have to learn to love the idea that strangers on the internet and your coworkers down the hall might actually think you are poor. Let them think it. Let them look at your 5-year-old phone and your paid-off, unremarkable sedan, and let them feel a false sense of superiority. Their arrogance is funding their captivity. Your humility is funding your absolute autonomy. When you stop financing the aesthetic of success, you suddenly have the capital to purchase actual freedom. But I will warn you, the first 30 days outside the matrix are going to hurt. When you stop buying convenience, your brain goes through literal chemical withdrawal. You will stand in your kitchen, staring at raw ingredients, and your conditioned mind will scream at you to just open the app and order the food. You have to sit in that silence. You cancel the premium subscriptions that exist only to numb your brain after a day of meaningless labor. You feel the discomfort of existing without a digital pacifier, and you realize you aren't dying. You are waking up. A man who doesn't need to be entertained, a man who doesn't need to be validated by a screen, is a man who cannot be controlled by a bank. You stop behaving like a lab rat desperate for the next hit of synthetic cheese, and you start looking at the maze from the outside. I watch these executives strutting around high-end restaurants, flashing titanium credit cards to buy an hour of respect from a waiter. It is pathetic. True power isn't forcing people to notice you. True power is walking through the world completely undetected, knowing that if the entire corporate structure burned to the ground tomorrow, your life wouldn't change by a single fraction of a degree. Marcus is still sitting in his glass office, checking his smartwatch to see how much stress his car payment is causing him. But Ethan? Ethan finally broke. He sold the integrated smart home ecosystem. He bought a cast iron skillet. Yesterday, his direct deposit hit his account. For the first time in a decade, he didn't feel a rush of dopamine. He felt nothing. Because the money didn't belong to a lender, it just sat there, quiet, heavy, his. If you actually understand the gravity of the cage you are sitting in, drop a comment saying, "Plastic cheese." The premium broke will scroll right past it. But the ghosts, the ones building empires in the dark, we will see you. My name is Daniel Rath. I'll see you outside.